Hi everyone, welcome to UkrAgroConsult webinar. I'm Julia Feofilova, brand manager at UkrAgroConsult, and I'm happy to greet you on behalf of our team. So today we will discuss Ukrainian grain market potential, risks, and export prospects by the end of the current season. It's true that the war promoted great changes in the regional grain flows and the global commodity trade. Our team monitors the market changes and covers the ongoing and emerging new trends in our daily and weekly market reports. Subscribe and follow for better understanding of the shifting grain markets. Moreover, we have a great news. We are launching a new international event, Eurograin Hub Exchange and Forum. It will be held on April 26-28 in Bucharest, Romania. This is a new and powerful step to respond to the ongoing market extremes, rerouting of the global grain trade, logistics, and pricing. So join us and the key stakeholders of the global agri-commodity supply chain to exchange, network, and trade. Coming back to our webinar, I'd like to introduce grain market analyst Marina Marinic, who will talk in a bigger detail on what's going on in Ukrainian grains and oilseeds market. Marina, you are welcome.
Thank you, Julia, for the introduction. Greetings to all the participants of our webinar. Today we will talk about the export potential of Ukrainian grain and oil crops and whether it will be possible to fully realize it. I will start with this year's harvest. The vast majority of crops experienced a sharp reduction in production due to war-related reasons, such as difficulties with the exporting of products abroad, lack of financial coverage, shortages and rising prices of fuel, fertilizers, and other inputs. Cereal crops experienced a reduction of 40% on average. The sunflower crop was reduced by a third. Soybeans and rapeseed, on the contrary, showed a 10% increase due to an increase in planted areas. Harvesting of corn this season could not be completed before the winter. According to operational data, as of 2nd of February, 9% of the area under corn still remains unharvested. Almost 26 million tons in bunker weight were harvested, and the yield was 6.72 tons per hectare. The main regions that have not yet finished harvesting of this crop are Chernihiv and Sumy Oblast, each with 58,000 hectares remain. The high yield of corn is due to the higher level of moisture. A month ago, the cumulative export of corn was higher than last year's due to the high ending stocks of the previous season. In December, more than 3 million tons were exported, but in January, the pace of shipments fell the pace of shipments in January fell to 2.5 million tons due to the Christmas and New Year's holidays, short-term bad weather conditions in the ports, electric power outages, and a slowdown in the pace of inspections in the Joint Coordination Center by the Russian side, the latter affecting the slowdown in exports the most. In total, almost 12.5 million tons were exported in September-January, which is 13% less than last year. I would like to draw your attention to the reduction of exports to China by more than a half. Firstly, China itself no longer needs as much corn as it did a year or two ago. Secondly, the interruption of supplies due to the start of hostilities in Ukraine contributed to China's decision to diversify its corn supply by adding Brazilian corn to the portfolio. Egypt and Turkey also continue to purchase Ukrainian corn, but in much smaller amounts. But Ukraine maintains a leading position among suppliers of corn to Turkey. Its share in Turkish imports is 75%. But the main importer of Ukrainian corn in 22-23 season remains the EU, which increased the amount of purchases by 76% compared to the last season, and the share of Ukraine in the structure of their imports reached almost 47% due to the attractive price compared to other origins. As of end of January, the European Union has already imported almost 16.5 million tons of corn. USD estimates imports in the EU in the 22-23 season at 21.5 million tons, although there are estimates up to 28 million tons. Usually Ukraine's share in EU corn imports drops sharply in the last quarter of season when second harvest from Brazil appears, but the current season is very likely to break this trend because the corn stocks in Ukraine are still large, and the slow pace of inspections prevents ports from operation at full capacity. As for the wheat, the pace of wheat exports from Ukraine is far behind the pre-war period. According to operational data of the State Customs Service, as of end of January, more than 9.5 million tons were exported, which is 43% less than last year. Before the full-scale invasion, the main buyers of Ukrainian wheat were Indonesia and Egypt. Now the first place is occupied by the European Union, which in July-December imported almost 15 times more than last year. Turkey also increased its purchases compared to last season, but only by 10%. The most noticeable decrease in demand compared to the same period of the previous year is from Indonesia and Egypt, minus 87%. It is also need to mention about the deterioration of wheat quality in this season. The share of feed wheat in exports in the first half of the season was 47%. And it may even be more if we take into account that feed wheat may also be hidden in unidentified wheat. In addition to weather factors such as fewer warm days and sometimes excessive precipitation, worse quality of wheat was influenced by the fact that not all farmers were able to carry out the necessary soil nutrition and plant protection. Barley exports have decreased significantly. Only the last 3 months were within the average range. Normally, barley exports show peak shipments at the beginning of the season, but this did not happen in 22-23 marketing year due to blocked ports and loss of sales markets such as Saudi Arabia. China reduced the amount of import of Ukrainian barley by 20 times, Turkey by 4 times, Libya by 3 times. And again, the only destination that shows significant growth is the European Union. In July-December, EU countries purchased approximately 10 times more barley from Ukraine than last year. Due to the growth of the demand from the EU, the share of food barley in Ukrainian exports has increased to 10%. The production of only malting barley in the EU accounts for about 20-25% of the total production of this crop, and the demand for it is significant as well. Also, the price premium can stimulate Ukrainian farmers to pay more attention to the production of higher quality barley in Ukraine in future. On this slide, you can see our current estimates for major grain exports. As of the end of January, 77% of wheat export potential have already been exported, as well as 93% of barley and about 47% of corn. So it is fair to say that the dominance of corn in grain exports will only increase in the coming months. The processing industry continues to operate in conditions of constant power outages, while some processors of oilseeds implement generator power, but this significantly affects the cost of production. The current crush margin calculation showed that sunflower processing is currently very profitable compared to even the pre-war period. This is confirmed by the pace of production and especially the export on sunflower oil. In the first 5 months of the current season, 2.3 million tons of oil were exported, which is a pretty good result taking into account the sharp reduction of crop. But amid the active export of oil, there is an equally active export of sunflower seed. In the first 5 months of the season, almost 1.4 million tons were exported, compared to 41,000 tons in the same period of last year. This season, the export of sunflower seed can reach 2.53 million tons, which will significantly exceed the record of the last year, 1.6 million tons. So far, our estimate is 2.25 million tons, and we still hope that the situation can return to the former course, namely stopping the export of raw materials and increasing the volume of processing within the country. This can happen only if processors increase their purchasing prices for sunflower, and it will be more profitable for farmers to sell to the domestic market instead of exporting the raw materials to neighboring countries. The trend of increasing seed exports in the future may play a cruel joke on Ukrainian processors who may face a shortage of raw materials for processing. In the oil sector, soybeans and rapeseed remain export-oriented crops, with 70 and 99% of the crop exported in 2023, respectively. At the same time, the export of rapeseed reached a record mark, more than 3 million tons. Traditionally, at this time, almost 100% of the entire export potential was realized. On the sunflower market, for the second year in a row, the shift towards the export of raw materials continues, affected by the current situation in the country. The share of export can reach 20% and even exceed this point. Let me remind you that in the pre-war period, the oil industry processed almost the entire sunflower crop. Many factors affect the prospects for realizing Ukraine's export potential. What interfere in Ukrainian grain and oilseed exports? First of all, this is slow pace of inspections. My colleague Maxim Harchenko will tell you more about this later. Secondly, worse quality of Ukrainian origin. As I already mentioned, this season it was not possible to finish harvesting corn before the winter. Harvesting usually ended in December at the latest, but this season by mid-December, almost 30% of corn remained in the fields. Frost and temperature fluctuations have led to a deterioration of grain quality, in particular to an increase of mycotoxin levels, and EU is very cautious about that. Therefore, there is a risk that a certain part of the harvest may be counted as losses. The next point is the future of the grain corridor. On the 19th of March, another prolongation of the grain deal awaits us, and although the majority of market participants are positive about it, representatives of the Russian Federation can once again turn on their propaganda machine with new accusations about the insufficient share of African countries among the receivers of Ukrainian origin. This led to a slowdown in trading activity last time. The effect may be smaller this time, but some importers may still want to wait a week or two before signing new contracts. Regarding the factors that contribute to the export of agricultural commodities, of course, it is high stocks of corn primarily. Let me remind you that the export potential of corn has not been realized even by half. Also, zero import duty for Ukrainian agricultural products in the EU. Just yesterday, it became known that the European Commission will offer member states to extend the temporary abolition of import tariffs on Ukrainian goods for another year. This will allow Ukrainian farmers to accumulate more financial resources for the upcoming sowing campaign. And last but not least, it is worth noting that during the blockade of seaports, Ukrainian exporters were able to establish alternative export routes, which continue to develop even after the opening of the grain corridor. You can learn more about it, find new buyers, suppliers, brokers, and partners at our recently announced conference, Eurograin Hub in Bucharest. We will be glad to see you there. And this is all from my side. Thank you for the attention.
Thank you, Marina. And we are moving on to the next speaker, Maxim Harchenko, logistics market analyst, to talk more about export prospects and trade flows. Max, you're welcome.
Thank you, Julia. My name is Maxim Harchenko, and I am logistics market analyst in UkrAgroConsult. Let's dive into the logistic aspects of the current season exports. As you all know, this marketing year was very unusual in terms of logistics. Since the launch of the grain corridor in August, the share of sea exports has increased significantly. In recent months, the share of exports through the grain corridor in small Danube ports has been at the level of 70–75%, which is still lower than in previous year when 95% of agricultural exports were carried out through seaports. However, it is worth noting that alternative routes are still in use and will definitely be relevant until the end of this marketing year. Moreover, investments in the small Danube ports and transshipment terminals on the western borders of Ukraine indicate that some volumes of export will remain here in the future. Ukrainian agricultural export rose sharply after the launch of the grain corridor in August and peaked in October, when 6.9 million tons of grains, oilseeds, meals, and vegetable oils were exported. After the peak volumes in September and October, uncertainty in the market due to the extension of the grain corridor left an imprint on export volumes in November 2022. In December, exports almost returned to previous highs of 6.8 million tons, but in January it fell again to 5.5 million tons. This decline was caused by various factors, but the main one was the slow work of inspection commissions teams in Istanbul, which slowed down the grain corridor. In addition, exports by alternative routes also decreased comparing to previous months. Only 88 vessels left Ukraine during January, comparing to 138 in average during the past months. The average waiting time for the inspection remained at the level of 8 days. Each day of waiting costs from $20,000 to $50,000 depending on the tonnage of the vessel. Due to the artificial blocking of work by Russian inspectors in Istanbul, on average 2-3 ships a day left the corridor in January. At the same time, exports increased in the second half of January as priority was given to large capacity vessels. Vessels with a carrying capacity of at least 15,000 tons for all types of food products, except oilseed ones, and at least 6,000 tons for oilseed products are passed first. The situation is also complicated by adverse weather conditions in the Black Sea ports. As of the end of January, 117 vessels are awaiting for inspections in Turkish territorial waters. 92 of them to call at ports for loading, and 25 are already with agricultural products. In the first half of the season, grain exports faced many challenges. According to various studies, Ukraine has lost from 10 to 13 million tons of elevator capacities since the beginning of the full-scale invasion. Thanks to donor support, Ukrainian farmers received 31,000 storage sleeves in 2022, which helped to store about 6.2 million tons of grains. Alternative storage methods, together with the opening of the grain corridor, helped to avoid a situation in which there would be no free space on elevators for storing grain. Uncertainty due to the extension of the grain corridor in November forced exporters to give preference to alternative routes, such as small Danube ports, and the situation improved later in December. It should be noted that in November, 3.3 million tons of agricultural products were exported by alternative routes. And the last point, the attacks on the energy infrastructure in October caused disruption in the work of Ukrainian seaports, but operators quickly adapted by buying generators to protect themselves from blackouts. Here's a small list of threat factors for Ukrainian exports in the second half of this marketing year. Ukraine insists on increasing the number of inspector teams to speed up ship inspections. Now, on average, a little more than 3 million tons of agri-products are exported through the ports of Greater Odessa per month, while their capacity is up to 6 million tons. Another point is the agreement on the grain corridor that expires in March, which will add uncertainty to the market, and this may affect export volumes, as it was already in November 2022. Even now, due to unstable vessel inspections, traders cannot assess the risks of ship downtime. Another negative factor should have been the news that members of P&I Insurance Club from January 2023 refused to cover the risks of war for vessels heading to Ukraine. But the Minister of Agrarian Policy and Food, Mykola Solsky, assured that in January and February there will be no any problems with insurance. According to our estimates, in the 22-23 marketing year, Ukraine may still export a little more than 23 million tons of grains, oilseeds, and their processed products. We expect that Ukrainian grain exports may shrink to mainly corn shipments in February-August 2023, with some wheat additions in February and March, as local farmers will likely to increase their sales to earn some money before the spring field works. Moreover, even without prolongation of the grain corridor, everything might be exported through the alternative routes. The production of grains and oilseeds in Ukraine will dramatically fall in 2023 comparing to the years before the Russian full-scale invasion. The carryovers in the next marketing year will be much lower than in the current year, which means that cargo base for grain transportation may be significantly reduced in 23-24 marketing year due to reduced acreage and yields. Amid the decline in export volumes, rail and road logistics for agricultural products have decreased in price by up to 50% for spot deliveries comparing to the first months of the current marketing year. In our opinion, the competition between trucking companies and railway for transportation of agricultural products to ports and western borders will only intensify in 2023 because the grain export potential will fall by 30%. Of course, the truck transportation sector will not return to the price level of 2021, but current rates no longer seem so expensive against the background of significantly increased diesel fuel prices. If you want to keep track of agri-exports by sea vessels from the ports of Ukraine, please subscribe to our lineup report using the link on this slide. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you, Max. Thank you to all of our viewers today. Hope we delivered some additional and valuable insights for your decision making. Stay tuned for our next webinars, market reports, and announcements. And let's meet together in April at the Euro Grain Hub Exchange and Forum in Bucharest. See you. Bye-bye.